Hello, you little squidgy balls of sausage meat. This is Descartes, and he looks a bit like Mr. Bean. But Mr. Bean never really said much. Bingo! And Descartes said this.
I think, therefore I am.
Anyway, Descartes said that in a few places. He said it here, and he said something similar before that here. And he also apparently said it to himself while he was sat in a stove. I don't know, I think he was cold, or hungry, or something. Right, so do you know why Descartes said,
I think, therefore I am?
No? Yeah? Oh, you do know. Well, you should watch this video anyway, because maybe you'll learn something. And after all, you are just a little squidgy ball of sausage meat. But before we get to that, let's have a quick look at Descartes' life. Descartes was born in France in 1596. No. There wasn't an Eiffel Tower then, and he wasn't born in Paris anyway. Descartes was born in Descartes. What? Yeah, it wasn't called Descartes then, it was called La Haye-en-Touraine, and I'm sure I said that wrong, and French people are going to get really angry with me, but as a British man, the French are my mortal enemy, so I don't care. So, they named this town after Descartes in 1802, La Haye-Descartes, and then they finished the job in 1967, when they fully changed the name to just Descartes. Ask yourself this, have you ever had a town named after you? No, you haven't, because Descartes' cool, and you are, well, questionable. Now, after being in the army for a while, Descartes settled in the Netherlands in 1628, when he was about 32 years old. That's where he wrote all of his major works, including
I think, therefore I am,
that we're talking about today. And he even abandoned plans to publish some of his work after he heard that Galileo was having a pretty bad time of things down south with the Roman Inquisition for saying that the Earth was not centre of attention. Right. Now, after about 20 years working in the Netherlands, Descartes went up north to Sweden to teach Queen Christina the art of love and to do some other things like start a science academy and probably have some fun. But here's the thing, Sweden's bloody cold, and after about 4 months, Descartes dropped dead from what seems to have been pneumonia. It was February 1650, and Descartes was just 53 years old. Now let's get back to
I think, therefore I am.
Or as people like me like to say when they pretend they can read Latin, cogito ergo sum. So when Descartes was sat in his stove, he had this idea that everything we know should be built on solid foundations. He asked himself this, what can I know for sure? He then began his famous process of doubt, sometimes called Descartes' methodological skepticism. It's methodological because he's not actually a skeptic, he just used a skeptical approach in the pursuit of knowledge, which he eventually found, at least according to him. His doubt went something like this.
Well, I can't really be sure if any of these things in the world around me really exist. What if all of this is just a dream? And if I can't be sure of that, then I can hardly even be sure of the existence of my own body. What if there's an all-powerful evil demon tricking me into thinking I have a body, when in fact I don't? And that includes my eyes. Oh, it's very dark now. But does anything remain? Is there anything left that I cannot doubt? Oh yes, there is. I am still able to think, but can I also doubt that?
No, that would be absurd. If I am doubting, then I must be thinking.
Aha! I have reached something that cannot be doubted. The existence of my own thought. And do you know what that means? I think, therefore I am. Bloody hell, I'm a clever bastard.
And that's the story of how Descartes came up with his thinking and amming. Okay, so I know what you're thinking, and it's a good job you're thinking, because if you wasn't, well, yeah. Anyway, you're thinking this. What's the point? I can think this and that, but what bloody use is that if I haven't got a body? Am I doomed to be a mere apparition, a thought in the void for all eternity? Well, as it happens, that might not be such a bad thing. According to Descartes, the fact that we think proves at least two more important things. The first is that our mind, which Descartes thinks is the same as our soul, is not the same as our body. The two things are totally distinct and totally independent of each other. And the second is that God exists, and that if God exists, we can also have knowledge about the world. So this is where things get complicated. But the basic idea is this: we can build more knowledge on top of the knowledge that we are thinking and being. About the mind, Descartes says something like this: the mind cannot be doubted. The body can be doubted. So, the mind and the body are not the same thing. This is Descartes' cogito argument for the distinction between the mind and the body. And since Descartes also thought that the mind was the same as the soul, he went on to say that we can be pretty sure that the soul is immortal. Why? Because the soul doesn't have physical properties like the body, and for that reason does not die when the body dies. Of course, God could decide to blast your soul into total obliteration, but that would be a different thing altogether. And about God himself, well, this is where things get even more interesting. Descartes thought that our existing proves God's existing, and that God's existing means that we can have a more general knowledge about the world, about things such as this stove and this rabbit. This is because for us to be able to think of something more perfect, there must actually be something more perfect in the world, which is God. And since God is the most perfect being of all, by definition, that means he must exist. Because if he didn't, well, he wouldn't be perfect. Okay, so I'm not really doing justice to Descartes' thoughts about God here, but it's a kind of ontological argument for the existence of God with epistemological consequences. Now, let's take a quick break. If you've made it this far in the video, you might as well put a little bit more bloody effort in and click that subscribe button, because if you don't, the Reaper here is going to give you a little chop chop. Okay, so yeah, not everyone is impressed with Descartes' ideas about the soul and God, but his statement, "I think, therefore I am," does strike a chord with a lot of people. Why is that? I think because on a more personal and psychological level, it is an affirmation of the self. Yes, I'm serious. Listen to this. Before Descartes began his inquiry into the foundations of knowledge, he studied and he travelled. And what he learnt was that the opinions of others could never truly be depended upon, something that we should remember today.
Now, this sounds absolutely insane, and I'm aware of how this sounds. But
Descartes realised that no matter how extravagant or ridiculous some idea might seem, to use his own words, it had been accepted by someone seemingly rational. Descartes thus decided that the only true way to knowledge was to think for himself. This is what he said.
After I had spent some years thus studying in the book of the world, and in trying to gain some experience, I resolved one day to study within myself too, and to spend all of the powers of my mind in choosing the path that I should follow. In this I had much more success, it seems to me, than had I never left either my country or my books.
This is what I think we feel when we hear Descartes' famous affirmation. It is not just about epistemological certainty and metaphysical speculation. It's about knowing that only we are responsible for our knowledge and that only we are responsible for the paths we take. This side of Descartes' work is often overlooked. Nevertheless, the psychological pull of the statement, "I think, therefore I am," should not be ignored. Anyway, that's the end.